Councillor Hutchinson,
Councillor Hutchinson, present.
Councillor Inman,
Councillor Inman, present.
Councillor Medina,
Councillor Medina, present.
Councillor Braccio,
And Councillor Prachu is present.
and Mayor Knutson's present. So we're all here. Next up is the mayor's report. Just a couple of things to note. The city of Cresswell was named Tree City for the 11th year in a row. So thank you to the Parks and Tree Board and to Public Works for making that happen. Second thing is the city of Cresswell was successful in obtaining $150,000 in Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funds, to help small businesses in rural Lane County. So this doesn't apply to Eugene and Springfield. The funds will be available through Community Lending Works with grant funds for micro enterprises, which are 5 or fewer employees, including the owner, and small businesses with 6 or more employees in rural Lane County for businesses that have been impacted directly by the COVID-19 public health restrictions in 2020 and continuing into 2021. So grant levels are up to $10,000 for micro enterprises and $2,500 per full-time employee for small businesses. Businesses must be located outside the cities of Eugene and Springfield, so Cresswell qualifies for that. If you are a small business that's been impacted, you can go to the city's website or you can go to communitylendingworks.org for more information and an application. And that's all I have for the mayor's report. Moving on to committee reports. First up is Administration and Finance Committee.
We have a meeting scheduled for March 3rd. Other than that, there's nothing to report.
All right. Next up, Public Safety Committee.
Okay, I also have nothing to report at this time. We're looking to set up a meeting in the middle of March.
Okay. Transportation and Public Works Committee.
All right. Transportation and Public Works Subcommittee, being the Water Rate Advisory Committee, met, and we had a single meeting for which we used to process the proposed rate and discuss the rates that were being proposed as a possibility. And we can come back and report to the council this evening that we have recommended an increase across the board for water, sewer, and bulk water rate of 2% increase. And then the Transportation and Public Works Committee itself is still working on date setting for its first meeting.
Okay. All right, so that recommendation and that vote will probably go on the next city council meeting, but does anybody have any questions regarding that? Manager Amberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe actually the rate will just be included in the budget when it comes up for adoption.
Oh, okay.
So there will not be a separate, it's just a recommendation and then we incorporate it into the budget and then we discuss it at the budget process.
Right. Sorry, I forgot that. Okay, so we'll talk about that at the budget meeting then. And then Manager Amber, could you remind me if we are going to propose a gas tax or an LID and we need to get that on this November ballot or next November ballot?
Well, you can choose which ballot you'd like to have it on. It doesn't even have to be on a November ballot, but I would highly recommend a November ballot. If you want to have it on the ballot this year, we have to be pretty much wrapped up with the language and how much of the how much you want the tax to be and all of the legal forms by August. So the earlier we can do it, the better.
And I think I put that on the timeline. So if you guys happen to come to some sort of agreement and recommendation for us, then the sooner the better, so council can discuss it and we can, the November ballot's better because we don't have to pay the extra, correct?
Exactly.
That's correct.
Okay.
I think we're shooting for trying to have a meeting in mid-March, but I believe some of the other committees are meeting as well that week. So the Public Safety Committee has a date meeting that week, and I believe the Planning Commission also meets that week. But if staff is able to also handle one more meeting that week, we can do it then. Otherwise, we might be looking at pushing off to early April. So
Okay.
I'll connect with Manager Amberg on that.
All right, sounds good. Parks and Tree Advisory Board.
There's been no meeting due to the size of the board and the difficulties of meeting the COVID regulations.
Okay. And so are they not able to meet online either in a virtual meeting?
We haven't tried to do that. It might be difficult because, again, we have 7 people and we don't know what their computer capabilities are. Some of them may not even have the ability to have an online meeting.
Okay. Airport Commission.
Nothing to report.
All right. Elkhog is me. So we did have 2 meetings, one in January, one in February. Basically, we went over annual reports and the audit report, lots of bureaucratic stuff, nothing really of note that pertains to Cresswell. I was also appointed to serve on the audit committee, so that will be fun to get to know Elkhog better and what they do with all their money. The Elkhog annual awards always happens this time of year, but of course it's going to be virtual this year. It's March 5th at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. and these it's just an award ceremony to recognize elected officials and different city employees that have made a difference in our community in the last year. So if you want to attend, you can let me or Roberta know. Since it's virtual, it's free this year, so there's no fees in attending. And that's all I have for Elkhog. Next up is Lane Act.
Yeah, so we did have a meeting. We meet the second Wednesday of each month, and so the last meeting that we had, we got a number of updates about what's happening with all things transportation in Lane County and also with ODOT. So we had a number of presentations. So we had one from the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program update, and that was presented by Bill Johnston, so the ODOT Area 5 planner. We also received just an ODOT strategic action plan. Got an update on that. And that was presented by Franny Brindle, who is a ODOT Area 5 manager. And then we had a Oregon Transportation Commission outreach, again, kind of discussing ODOT's proposal for redefining the role of the acts and improve, or ideas for improving communication with OTC. And so that was presented by Jerry Bohard, who's the ODOT Policy, Data, and Analyst Division Administrator. And so generally we got lots of strategic updates. There was lots of back and forth as to kind of what happened and how we can make that relationship better. So I'm excited to continue to engage in meetings and to learn and build partnerships with other delightful towns, not Eugene and Springfield focused. So I'm excited to get to know them. Our next meeting is coming up on March 10th and looks to be a good one.
All right, thank you, Councillor Clark. Next up are presentations, and I don't see any on the agenda, so we will move on to discussion items. And first up is our July 4th, 2021 celebration, and that is Manager Amberg.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, the 4th of July is coming up. Last year, it was scaled down considerably. People were pretty good sports about it overall. We did have a interesting parade that went through town, some sections of town. That was kind of a spontaneous on-the-spot parade. But normally, the 4th of July is put on by the Chamber of Commerce, and it is one of their large events. The Chamber of Commerce does several events during the year. They do the Mother's Day yard sale. They do the 4th of July. They do an annual banquet, and they do the Winter Festival of Lights. So if I thought you might have some questions maybe about the 4th of July. Part of what they do is they do a breakfast in Holt Park. They have an amazing parade. They arrange for the flyover of the military jets. They organize all of the food and the entertainment in the park, as well as activities for youngsters. There's been a car show and fireworks. This is probably not something that the city could even begin to take on. The number of volunteers it takes is tremendous, and they do an amazing job at the chamber. But of course, with COVID, there are some financial considerations to take into account, and also they have had some struggles themselves. And I'd like to introduce you to Raina Matzer. She is the president now of the chamber, and I'd like to have her fill you in on what the chamber does. Raina?
Right. Well, thank you for having me here tonight. So at this moment, I kind of think there's still going to be some restrictions. I don't see that those are going away just this quickly for the event to happen. Some of the struggles the chamber is having is at this very moment, we don't have enough board members. And so at this time, it's just an event that we don't have the capacity to be able to run. We do have a contract with the fireworks display, which was moved from last year to 2021. And that is something that, you know, I would like to look into and see if can happen, but it really just depends on those restrictions with COVID.
Okay, so just a quick question. When you say the fireworks display, since you didn't use them in 2020, does that mean like you have a credit to use them in 2021?
We have the contract, and yes, we have the money available to use them in 2021.
Okay, thank you. All right, does anybody else have any questions for either Manager Amberg or for Raina? This is our time to discuss if we want to do this, if we don't want to do this, if we think this, we should just let it be. And Councilor Inman?
Yes, thank you. So I have a couple of questions. One is, and I think this one would be for Raina, is you had made the comment about not having enough board members. So if you had enough board members, would that kind of assist with the 4th of July moving forward?
I think that's twofold. It also depends on what the restrictions will allow us to do. But at this very moment, the chamber is actually running without enough board members. And so we do need to, I guess you would say, get or acquire enough board members so that we can continue functioning. Otherwise, we won't be able to function at all.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think I saw Council President Pachu and then Councilor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm glad that we're having this conversation this evening. It's important, and I think that we all understand the importance of this important and traditional holiday in Cresswell and such. So I lost some lights in here. Anyway, so yeah, we definitely, you know, the tourism aspect of Cresswell is vital. It's vital for our businesses, and it's just important to the community and such. So I did kind of wonder whether we were going to even be able to do something this year again. And then, as Manager Amberg kind of pointed out, that sometimes in the absence of official events, the town will, you know, come to the, you know, and come to the charge and do it themselves. And it's both beautiful to see the community rally and gather and try to do something. but it also has its potential pitfalls. Say parade routes going through sections of town and clogging areas up where the police aren't able to set up and direct traffic and things like that. So it's better to have something and have a plan than to not. But I also understand our limitations. The other important thing that I really feel is, of course, a good and healthy chamber, and I understand the challenges that we're experiencing there. So I had thought to myself that in order for the chamber to be able to help reboot and recharge and get to where they needed to be, that I was hoping that we would not put the responsibility of a big event again on the chamber this year, so that they can have time to kind of sort that out. So those are kind of my initial thoughts. I didn't really have any questions, but just kind of thoughts that I wanted to throw out there. So
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. How many people are needed for the board for it to be full?
Thank you. So for the board, we're looking for 6 to 11 positions.
Okay. And
Sorry, is that additional positions or total?
Total.
And so how many are on now?
Currently, at this very moment, there are 2.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry, Councillor Hutchinson, please continue.
I was just gonna say that I agree with what President said about if we don't do, even if it's a little parade or something, that I feel like the town will just do it on their own, like last year.
Okay. Councillor Medina.
Excuse me. No, I agree. I think the minimum we should at least work towards is fireworks. As for a parade, I mean, is there any options with community involvement like they did last time? Obviously, if we can do something like that, just more organized. I mean, I don't see how it wouldn't be a possibility to have a parade, even with restrictions. Because people can come outside their house and watch it go by, or they can be outside. And so, I mean, I think it's vital to the people of Crestwell and to lift everyone's spirits, because it's been such a hard time year. I mean, they all look forward to it. I know my family loves it. So it's just something we've got to really try to work for. And I think, try to look at all options and make things happen for it.
Okay. So I'm sorry, just to make it clear, you're saying you want the city to hold a parade?
Oh, no, yeah, I was seeing like what our options would be with maybe a couple volunteers, something like this to organize, or what we could do to get that to take effect, to come up with a plan.
Yeah.
So we can at least be working on something. So if we can do it, great. If restrictions for some reason we can't, we can still have fireworks. But like we said, we got to try something for the parade.
Right. Manager Amberg.
Thank you. As the mayor knows, we kind of talked about this a little bit. The parade, I feel caution about the parade because we don't want crowds of people gathering to watch something. The other thing is the parade can be kind of dangerous. And we've had discussions about this every year, in that if you don't have a well-defined parade with people doing crowd control, they've actually, in other cities, had the unfortunate incident of children getting run over by floats. And we certainly don't want that here. Also, we tried to work with the parade committee last year and tried to encourage them to get the permit. And they just didn't want to do that. They wanted to just have a more spontaneous type of parade, which worked out, except for some of the problems with the traffic congestion. They did follow all of the rules that they needed to follow. They made up their own route, which was fine, but they did cause some traffic congestion.
So would it be safer then with the city helping out in the involvement, or less safer?
Well, that's a great question. I'm not sure who at the city would actually be involved with helping putting on the parade. We don't have any staff that's dedicated to Parks and Recreation or any kind of activities like that. And that's an incredibly busy part of the year for us because it's the end of our fiscal year and the beginning of a new fiscal year. So staffing could be a real problem. It's you know, some of the other parts of the 4th of July are much easier to do, but again, would create issues with crowd control. One of the things we did last year was we had the ice truck come and did ices. It was very expensive. And I'm not sure if it was something that the city council would want to do again this year, but it drove around town and we gave coupons to every house, and they were allowed to have, I think, 4 ices per family for free, and that cost us $15,000 to do that. One of the very successful things that the city did last year was put on sort of a 4th of July air show out at it wasn't really an air show, it was a static display, and then some of the pilots were able to fly. As I recall, the weather wasn't the greatest the last 4th of July, so they had to cancel the Young Eagles and the kinds of flights that they do, but we could certainly do something out at the airport again this year and encourage people to do that. The other thing that we did was we had contests, and I don't know if that's something the city council wanted to do again this year, but again, all of that takes money, and so we need to think about staffing levels, and we need to think about budget. So
Right.
I think the fireworks could work if the school is willing to let us use the area and the chamber. If we could use the chamber's contract. I think we could make the fireworks work if we could put out a grid system so that people could have their small family gatherings and have them be 6 feet apart. I think that would work. But again, it's something for a city council to chew on tonight.
And what about I know we can't do obviously like the pancake breakfast, everybody loves, but I know, what about like prepackaged stuff? Like items, something like that, I don't know, muffins, stuff like that, just any type of prepackaged, like where we can go to Costco and I think you can get like a case and they'll prepackage every one of them for your stuff, like, something like that. I'm just trying to build a little community involvement, try to make it a little bit more, do something on that day.
Again, that's 4th of July is a holiday, so if you're thinking city staff would do that on the 4th of July, we'd have to pay overtime and holiday time and things like that. So these are all things to think about.
So maybe Councillor Prochu can speak to this as well. When we took on the emergency preparedness fair, that was a big endeavor that took about 1.5 years to almost 2 years for council and staff to organize and to implement. And it took a lot of volunteers to implement. And looking back, it seemed more appropriate to have an event planner do that versus taking up council time and staff time. And we budgeted for it. It really wasn't a huge cost item, but it was a lot of time and effort. And if council wants to take on hosting a parade and a flyover and a breakfast and try to make it safe and distanced appropriately, you're talking about a really big endeavor that is going to take more than just the few months that we have until 4th of July to plan out and to implement. Councillor Prachu, I believe you have your hand up.
You took the words right out of my mouth. And I wasn't even on the Public Safety Committee at the time that happened. I think that.
Oh, that's right. You were just a volunteer, but you
right.
spent
We volunteered and we came over and we stuffed labels on top of the water jugs. But that's we got involved kind of late in the game on that one. But I do know just from discussions that we've had on council and with former Mayor Zetterval and yourself, and know that was a huge undertaking. A lot of man hours just to put that particular event on. So I'm with you. I think that this isn't something that staff should be taking on or council members themselves. We're all volunteers and we don't have that. But I do think that we kind of need to have that kind of now and later look as far as like, what are we doing this year? And then how are we going to handle it in future years to come? And so I wanted to ask about whether our guest thought that maybe the chamber might be looking at trying to pick that back up down the road, or if they would like to see something else happen with it, like another committee or something like that.
That's a good question. Raina, are you still on with us?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I think it is probably something that they could in the future take on. It really just depends on that new board and what that new board looks like. And for this year, 2021, I just feel like there's so many restrictions that are still for safety-wise. I'm just so leery of planning anything. And I know that last year the city did the sidewalk art, which is a great idea. It keeps everybody distanced.
All right, Councillor Hutchinson, do you have your hand up?
I changed my mind.
Oh, okay. Councillor Inman. And then Councillor Clark, I see.
I think actually Councillor Clark was before me. I think I was the last one to put my hand up.
Sorry, I just looked down
That's okay.
and saw a bunch of yellow hands. So Councillor Clark and then Medina, then Inman.
Excellent. I was gonna say I'm a-okay with however it works out as well. I just wanted to clarify. So as I was reading the packet, it sounded like the fireworks and the additional porta potties would cost about $10,500, or that's kind of the estimate for it. And so I just wanted to clarify what I was hearing tonight. Is it sounds like the chamber has a contract, and I just. Do they also have a budget? So are we still planning on moving forward with that? Or is that a question that would the city need to potentially budget for that or add that into their budget?
Am I up?
Yeah, Raina, would you like to answer that one?
So there are funds available for the price of the fireworks. And if the money there is money available, it just really depends on if the money, which was originally earmarked for tourism, if we want all of that to go to tourism or to the fireworks.
So would that need a board consent in order to move forward with fireworks or tourism?
Raina, would that be the chamber making that decision, or are you looking to the city council for answer to that?
I would be looking for the city council for an answer.
Can the chamber actually expend money right now with only 2 board members? Or do you have to have a meeting to discuss any of this before making any kind of decisions?
Legally, unfortunately, I don't think that we can make any decisions until we have a full board.
So expenditure of the chamber funds might not even be an option at this time because the board can't meet to make that decision, is how I would interpret that situation. In addition to porta potties and fireworks, we would also, if the city is doing the July 4th, we would also have to think about insurance for a fireworks show.
All right, Councilor Medina.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even know my hand was up.
Oh, okay. Councilor Inman.
Thank you. So I had two questions for Raina. One is, you had mentioned that the 2020 contract, in a sense, kind of rolled over to this year, or the funding. So if the fireworks didn't happen, could it roll over again if it wasn't used?
That is a good question, and indeed, we would have to contact the company. It would probably depend on the governor's ruling as to events.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I didn't know if that was the option. And then my second question is when would there need to be typically a final decision if it was to come from the chambers regarding the 4th of July or a 4th of July celebration?
At this moment, everything should be in the works currently, and at this moment, there is nothing in the works. So
Okay.
the only thing that we have is this contract for the fireworks.
Okay, I see. Thank you. And then I think lastly, just a final comment. I love three things about the 4th of July in particular: the flyover, which I think that part could, or the airplane show could be doable. The second is the parade and the fireworks. However, I have high concern about people in groups, and just not for sure, depending on where things would be in the 4th of July, if that would be a safe thing for folks. So.
Okay. Councilor Castillo.
That would be upset.
Oh,
Yeah,
Councilor after Councilor Castillo.
yes, that was my thought. I'm first of all, I'm very much in favor of a repeat of last year, and if we could add to it like the fireworks, that would be great. But so if the chamber can even spend those funds, and the event takes place probably at the football stadium per usual, what would the restrictions look like for, the big crowds gathering inside? Yes, it would be outdoors, but yet they would still be all together. I mean, I don't know. Does anybody have any idea on that? It would be even if it was, say nobody could go in the football stadium and they were just shooting fireworks off from it, would that not encourage the gatherings around the football or the school? Or I don't know. I'd love to see it happen, and there's that is my thoughts. And then also the parade. I feel like the parade is probably going to happen with the folks doing it themselves anyway, and it will probably grow a little. Is what I'm thinking. And yes, it would be nice if the city had a hand in it somehow, but I guess that would be up to the people that are going to put on their homegrown parade, if they wanted to work together. And I believe last year did not. I recall Sergeant Denham saying that they technically did not have to get a permit because of what they were doing. So they didn't have to get a permit. So I don't know, but I kind of feel like if it's probably going to be a little bit bigger.
If I can answer that for you, Councilor Castillo, if they are going to have a parade that closes down Oregon Avenue or causes any kind of traffic closures, they have to have a permit. This was going to be a rolling closure situation, which does not require a permit, and they were not allowed to use Oregon Avenue.
Okay, all right. So is there? I know it probably sounds very difficult, but if there were some way to try to work with the folks that are probably going to put this on, and maybe with the sheriff, to make you know, I don't know, but I believe either one way or another, there's going to be a parade, just like last year.
I think what we can do is encourage them to get a permit and close down Oregon Avenue and be supportive of that, and then let them do their thing. I mean, we're not here to damper fun and parades, but definitely we need to do it in a safe way and to make sure not to impede traffic. And so I think encouragement, but we can't force people to do something that they don't want to do. And if they're planning, I mean, I guess encourage people, if you want to plan something with us, if you want to talk to us about it. And I don't know, could we make an ad hoc committee and have that with counselors, Manager Amberg, and just kind of work on something until the 4th of July and then disband the committee until next time? I don't know.
Sure, you could do that. The only, again, concern about closing down Oregon Avenue and having people gather along Oregon Avenue is the people gathering.
Right.
With having it informal rolling around the town, which they did last year, it does impede traffic, but it did encourage everyone to enjoy it from their home. And that was a big plus.
Right.
Yeah, but it's all outside.
Sorry, what was that? I missed that.
Just say it's all outdoors. I mean,
Yes, but we
So-
still have to try to maintain the spacings for the outdoors and limit it. I think there's a limit. We're looking at going down a level, and I don't know, maybe depending on what level we're in, we'll be able to have more people, but we'll not be able to have the 2,000, the 20,000 people that come into town. We'll be able to handle more like 250. So that's a big consideration. And not only that, when you get people lining the streets, again, you know, if you're going to have people coming down Oregon Avenue, there's a lot of restrictions we put on the parade to make sure that it's safe. Whereas if you have a kind of a spontaneous parade driving through town and people are just watching it from their yards, that's a whole different situation.
we got to just, you know, make sure something happens. I think if we don't do something, then we're kind of really dropping the ball here. So, I mean, if I have to give up time to whatever it takes to make sure at least one thing happens, and, you know, I'll do it. Whatever it takes.
Okay, Councilor Prachu?
I think I was going back to Alonzo's comment, Councilor Castillo, I'm sorry. It sounded like you were kind of, and I think Mayor Knutson also picked up on this a little bit, that there's maybe an unplanned plan is kind of something to throw out there. But I do want to caution again about Councilor Medina. I know you mentioned that we've got to do something, but again, it's what we can do is kind of limited. All we can do is kind of provide leadership and encouragement, I think, is because the council itself, I don't think is trying to take on any of the actual work here. But anyway, I am still very, very concerned about the impromptu routes. And because I was doing neighborhood patrol during the last one, I was actually part of that parade. And I can tell you that if fire and EMS needed to get into any of the areas where that was going on, they just wouldn't be able to. It just wouldn't happen. So if there was a way to encourage either, you know, coming up with a way and informing the people on the route and letting them know so that people might have a clue that this might be coming their way, at least they could plan for it and get out of the way, leave town, or do whatever they want to do. That's just something I wanted to throw out there again. So thank you.
All right, Councilor Clark, I believe that.
Sure. I just wanted to go back to that contract and financial piece to the fireworks, and also just share my concurrence with what Councilor Inman shared about what do you love about 4th of July, and particularly 4th of July in Cresswell, right? Like the parade, the decorations, the fireworks, like the flyovers. This is what we love. And I remember even when I was moving to Crestwell, right? The first thing that my partner shared with me is like, we're on the parade route, right? And like, that's where we live. And so I was like, great, right? And so I agree. I mean, I think that this is the 4th of July activities are what makes Crestwell unique and special, and I think exemplifies our community. And also, I want to be mindful of the cost that goes along with that as well, and the risk that goes along with that. Is, I mean, I think if I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like the Chamber of Commerce is the contract holder and would be able to share the contract, or essentially kind of give us the contract if we were able to pay the $9,000 plus the $1,500 plus the insurance. And so my question is as I read this, it sounds like we don't have this in our budget already to pay for. And so where would we find that money to be able to pay for the fireworks if the city were to take that on?
Thank you. That's a great question, Councillor Clark. Actually, since the 4th of July is in next fiscal year, we could budget it in next fiscal year's budget if it is just a contract amount like that. And again, so nothing would come out of this fiscal year's budget as far as planning or putting it together. And the contract that they have actually allows, I think, until July 14th for it to be paid. And as that for the source of money, we do get transient room tax, which can only be used for tourism. And I think, you know, by summertime, we can have small, reasonable, limited tourist events. So I'm just thinking, I guess I'm guessing that would be the case. I'm hoping that will be the case. So I think if we wanted to do the fireworks, we certainly could work with the chamber and this, provided the school district is cooperative. They're another partner in this, and see if we can't make the fireworks come off successfully.
All right, I lost track of who's got their hand up and who doesn't. I think Councillor Castilla had a comment, and then Councillor Hutchinson, and then Inman.
Yes, back to what Michelle was saying about the parade. Great on the fireworks. If we can make that happen, awesome. But back to the parade for a sec. Michelle, I think what I heard was that we would be better off just letting the citizens have their own parade. Is that what you're saying? That would be better than for the city to get involved and try to kind of manage or work with this together?
I think everyone underestimates what it takes to put on the parade, and it is a massive undertaking. It is by far the most complicated part of the 4th of July. And if you're going to have a parade that's going to encourage people to line up on Oregon Avenue, you're going to have to meet a lot of requirements. If you're going to have a rolling parade of, you know, maybe the ideal would be for whoever wants to organize the parade to organize a bunch of mini parades that have spaces in between them so that it doesn't become one big long parade. And they could drive through different areas of town, you know, instead of having 20 cars, limit it to, you know, 10 cars. And they get to go all over town, and you have several mini parades happening at the same time. You know, something like that where it could be broken up. And I think people really enjoyed having the parade go by their house. I think that was a very positive thing. So I think whoever is going to organize the parade is going to have, if they're going to organize a parade that goes down Oregon Avenue, is going to have an extremely bad day doing it. And I mean, Raina, you can jump in here about talking about the parade, but I have seen it organized for the last 7 years, and it is hard to do.
Okay.
Raina, do you have anything to add on the parade?
If I can jump in. I come from the standpoint of legalities, and legally for a group to organize a parade is it's not a good choice in these of pandemic events. And again, you think that it'll be lighter and lifted in the summer, but legally, I have a real hesitation with it.
Okay. Okay. How about this? How about this? This is just think outside the box for a second. Maybe this is even too crazy, but during I think it was in the winter, the fall, were there not a couple of drive-by parades where the parade people were stationary and people drove by? Would that be something that we could consider?
That is something that they did last year for the rhododendron parade. They did a drive-by. They did two things. They had the floats set up and people could drive by and see the floats, but they also did a virtual parade where they actually had a cameraman go out and reenact the parade, and they showed it at parade time so people could watch it at home. This year, the rhododendron committee decided not to do anything and completely canceled the Rhody days in Florence because it was so difficult and they didn't achieve the results that they were looking for. And getting volunteers together right now is a very difficult thing to do. I know that Bohemia Mining Days has canceled their parade, and they are going to just have a very much smaller bunch of static activities at the park this year. So we wouldn't be alone in discouraging a parade. The people who tried it last year really put in a lot of effort and are not doing it this year.
All right, Councillor Hutchinson, I believe.
So just a thought, but at Christmas time we did the Christmas light contest. What if we did a 4th of July decoration contest and did a small firework? I mean, you don't have to spend $9,000 on
Right.
fireworks.
So Michelle can speak to this, but last year we did do a 4th of July contest and we had prizes for homes that decorated in different themes. And I don't know, Manager Amber can speak to how successful that was and receptive that was.
The people who participated in the 4th of July decoration contest really enjoyed it. We had pets, we had sidewalk chalk art, and then we had houses that were decorated. And we did have quite a few houses, more than I anticipated, were decorated. I was surprised. It's a little bit more difficult to decorate for the 4th of July than it is for Christmas. There's just not as much available, but again, we were late in getting, I think, if we started telling people now, they might be able to get red, white, and blue type bunting and lights and things like that ready for decorating their house. And everyone who participated last year, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but we got nothing but positives back. And people expressed a desire to have it again this year and make it an ongoing part of what the 4th of July is. But again, I wasn't ready to commit to that without knowing the level of commitment that the city wanted to do. It was a one-off thing. It was planned because we knew that people were going to be really upset if we didn't have anything. And also keep in mind, another option that we can do is have some events out at the airport. That worked really well. They have lots of room out there. We can limit the number of people who come through the gate. And we can have the ice out there. That worked really well, the ices, and have the guys fly over with the smoke and show off some of the planes, and then have probably, I can't speak for them really at this point, but we can approach them and see if they can do the Young Eagles flights as well. So it's not like we won't do anything for Cresswell. It's just some of the more crowd intensive things may have to wait until another time.
All right, so when Michelle and I first talked about this, I said I want to bring this to you guys to discuss and hear your guys' ideas. And I feel like a lot of you want something, anything. Obviously, budget comes into play, planning comes into play. And so that's why I felt the fireworks, if we can work with the chamber to figure out some sort of fireworks show. And then I think Councilor Castillo brought this up about, people gathering at the stadium. How are we going to do that? And I think putting out some grid lines, spray paint grid lines, to make sure that people are gathering in a smaller space, and maybe people can just stay in their little rectangle away from people. And it kind of makes it so people know where to gather and we're not all gathering in a giant crowd to watch fireworks. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but if we can work with the chamber, I think it could boost morale and kind of get that 4th of July celebration back for us, since we didn't have that last year. Manager Amber, did you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's probably would be my recommendation, is that we try to keep the costs below $15,000 for this event, because that's what the transient room tax is this year. It's about half of what it normally would be. And we have to spend it on tourism. This doesn't really help our businesses too much here in town. A lot of people want to be closed on the 4th of July, and a lot of the businesses want to participate in the 4th of July themselves and have barbecues and be with their family. But it could be, the tourism money could be used. We could call it a tourism event, but that would be kind of stretching it, actually, because it would be more of a hometown event. So I don't know, there's some thoughts about that, whether or not the tourism money could actually even be accessed for this, since we could call it a tourist event, but again, we're going to need to see what level of restriction we're under, and not encourage a whole bunch of people to come into town, because it can't be 20,000 people. We can't begin to do that.
Right. Councilor Hutchinson, did you have another question?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I thought Rena said that they couldn't have meetings right now because they didn't have a full.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely an obstacle that we will have to figure out in the next few months. But if you can recruit some chamber members, then maybe they could get a full board and we could get some money transferred to us.
Could we put it on our website?
Manager Amber, could we advertise for the chamber on our city website?
Yes, we could.
All right. Good idea. Councilor Castillo.
No, yeah, just that's where, is Rena still there? Is she still there?
Raina, are you still here?
I think she is.
We may have lost
yeah,
her.
No.
That would be seriously, what would be the steps that would need to be have to be taken to be able to use those funds? Yeah, and I guess Rena would know that, or maybe Michelle. How soon could that happen? What do their I guess their bylaws or whatever, what do they actually say in regards to being able to spend those funds?
Well, yeah, I would hesitate to use the chamber's funds. I don't think I think that they're going to need the funds to get back up on their feet if they're going to do that. And in truth, the money came from the city to start with under the contract that we had with them for tourism. So the chamber has to make some decisions about how to use that tourism money. They could use it for special events, or they could open their tourism kiosk, their little office here in town, to help tourists who come to town. And they could staff it with people. But the truth of the matter is, they're not going to have much money from the city to be able to get started because, like I said, the tourism money isn't about half of what it normally is.
All right, so since this is a work session, this was throwing an idea out there and talking about it and working through some things. I'm sure Manager Amberg would like to know how we would like to proceed. Do we want to talk about this at another work session and get some more information? If so, what more information would you like to see? Do we want to move forward and try to host the fireworks this year? So I need some sort of council input and consent on where we'd like to go with this. Councilor Inman.
Yes, thank you. So I would be interested to see the time and cost of the airplane show. I'm in agreement with Councilor Hutchinson on having the contest. I think we did the sidewalk chalk, pet, home decor, kind of what the cost would be and staff timing that would be for that. So those would be things I would be interested in. And then if there was an overall consistency with fireworks, what that would look like, because I still have high concern of that. I live in very close proximity of where that gets shot off at, and I know what the fields look like. So, but I would be interested to see what the suggestions would be.
All right, Councilor Castilla.
Yes, so if we have, Michelle said, you'd like to see that at 15,000, that would be the budget. And that was, I think it was 15,000 was just spent on the shaved ice last year, right?
That's correct, it was.
So it sounds like we either do the fireworks and have very little left over, or, you know, it kind of takes a big chunk out of that, right?
It would, because the approach that I think would probably work the best would be for the city to approach the company that has the fireworks contract and see if we can't kind of buy that contract. So you're right, if we wanted to do the shaved ice, we could do that as a static event at the airport, or we could provide it as a static event somewhere in town at a much reduced cost. What we paid for was all day long of them driving around and selling ices, and they brought in 3 trucks. So it was pretty expensive, but I could get more information on shaved ice if that's something that you're interested in.
Well, I am. But I'm leaning towards I really like the idea of the contest and possibly getting prize money into the citizens' hands, just like the Christmas contest.
Okay.
So, you know, if we can do that, that would be great.
That's relatively inexpensive. That's $500, $600, something like that. Maybe 1,000.
Well, maybe we have more, you know, options, you know, more categories to give out more prizes.
That's true. That's true. Then we need more judges. I did several nights of house judging, and it took me 2 weeks every night going out judging all night long looking at houses.
Perhaps we have our own citizens do some judging. You know,
that's
maybe
a good idea.
you know, I don't know. Maybe they can do it on the connection page or something of you know, it gives them an opportunity to get out with their families and drive around and judge, you know, or something like that.
Or our our code officer. When he's just out cruising for code violations, he could also judge some houses.
That's true.
Counselor Hutchinson.
I was just gonna suggest asking for volunteers to do that on the webpage.
Yeah.
Again, coordinating volunteers is not an easy job, but what we could do is we could let people vote.
Yeah.
And, like
that'd be
post
good
the
too.
addresses
Yes.
and do like a poll or something on our
Yes.
website.
Yeah, people would have to register their address, and people could vote for the addresses for most patriotic or most
Right.
red, white, and blue. And we had, I think, 3 different categories and 3 different awards in the category. And then we had a grand category of best 4th of July spirit, and that was a year's worth of trash collection by Santa Pack, which they are always very generous to donate.
Right. Okay, so it sounds like we have a lot of ideas that we would like to keep discussing and possibly have some additional contests with some additional parameters on how to implement those contests. So do we want to bring this to another work session and keep working on this until the 4th of July? Because I feel like last year, Manager Amberg, we kind of put that contest together in like June, and we just had
Correct.
to implement it super fast. And so
Correct.
getting on it in February gives us a lot more time to keep working at it.
You're right.
Okay, so we can talk about this in another upcoming work session and kind of work through it. Do you have all the information you need, Manager Amberg, to go forward?
Yes, I think I do. This was great. This was a great discussion tonight. Thank you for everybody for your input, and I'll be thinking about it and see what creative solutions we can come up with.
Very good. All right, moving on to another important item is our city manager goals for 2021. Manager Amber.
Thank you, Mayor. In the memo I prepared for this meeting, I gave you a list of last year's goals and my thoughts on what I thought would be good for this year's goals. I have something to show you. We'll be using Microsoft Whiteboard. Hopefully you can see that.
We
I came
can.
up. Okay, good. And so I can put your ideas up on the screen. So I'm ready to start working on this if you are. I can't see who has their hands up or anything like that. All I can see is the screen. So somebody will have to call on people and moderate it for me.
I will do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
So just new counselors, just to give you a little bit of background, we implemented this a couple years ago it came about to better evaluate our city manager, but then also it's a good tool for her to use on going forward throughout the year and what we would like to see. She prepares a list of goals that she would like to work on, but this is a team effort. So if you have additional goals that you would like to see, we discuss them and talk about them, and then we all kind of vote on which ones Manager Amberg should work on for the year. And so if anybody wants to kick it off with some suggestions, or did we like the goals that she presented? Did we want to expand on those goals? Did we want to modify the goals? This is just an open discussion. What would you like the city to work on, and how can our city manager help support us in that? I think Councilor Castilla has his hand up, but I'm not sure if that's left over from last time.
No,
Right.
I do not have my hand up, but I will. We'll start off with are we starting with the focus on economic development? I'm looking at the list here. Is this how we're doing it?
So those were last year's goals.
Okay, all right.
Those focus on economic development, develop a strategy, park development. So the next,
Okay.
yeah, for 2021 would be the COVID recovery, provide council information on capital improvement funding sources for 2nd Street project, and then focus on economic development and redevelopment opportunities for the city and the airport, parks, and then our strategic plan, which a lot of you probably don't know about, but our strategic plan is for 5 years, and it is kind of coming to its end this year, and we will have to start working on that in order to implement 2022 through 2027. So that's going to be a big undertaking for council and for Manager Amberg. And then, so I guess, can you explain, Manager Amberg, complete COOP?
That's our continuity of operation plan. We have one in place and we've been using it throughout the pandemic, but it really needs some focused attention to complete it. It's still got areas that need work.
Okay. All right, so those were the goals that Manager Amberg had laid out for us that she would like to work on. Does anybody have any comments, questions, modifications, any additional ideas that you would like to see happen?
Well, what I wanted to start off saying was I believe and maybe it goes without saying that just the continuing working with RAIN, because I think RAIN kind of tweaked a little bit this year, did it not, due to COVID? And I'm just assuming, Michelle, you'll probably just continue to do that as well, with working with RAIN and to help with the businesses in any way you can.
Yes, that would be true.
And also, well, we probably don't know if there's going to be any more business stimulus money for small businesses. Do we know if there's going to be any more coming?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Business, what kind of business money?
The COVID relief funds for small businesses. I'm sure that if there's any more, I mean, you did a great job of just getting that word out there and getting that money dispersed.
Our opportunities to apply for another community development block grant are used. They only allow you so many block grants at one city, and this one that we just applied for, the $150,000 one, we have a year to complete all of the requirements for it. So in reality, probably the money is probably already spoken for.
Okay.
But we still have a year ahead of us of doing work that is related to that grant. And we probably couldn't apply for another grant. I could put down something like explore any opportunities for supporting our local businesses with federal funds. There may be.
Yeah. I think staying on top of that's really important to support our community. I mean, if the money's not there, the money's not there, but at least we're trying. This is a cool little program. So anybody that's new to council, typically when we have it in chambers, we have a big whiteboard and we kind of just go through our ideas and jot it all down. And I was asking Manager Amber, like, how are we going to do that this year? And she's like, oh, we have a very good little program on Teams that we could use. So this is pretty cool. Anybody else have any other comments, questions? Councilor Hutchinson.
So I don't know if this is the right place for it, but you had mentioned about like supporting the community, but there's people outside of the city limits that are still considered part of our community that don't have like internet and stuff like that. And I know that there's some kind of funds or something for rural areas to help
Right.
with internet.
That would be more of a county undertaking. We have, the city of Cresswell has city limits, and your authority as a counselor stops. The authority of city council, my authority, any authority that we have stops at those city limits. So we would not be able to really help people outside the limits in a very real way.
So county commissioners, is that there?
There is a county broadband group that Jim attends. But again, our role on it is pretty small.
Right. I was just thinking Commissioner Buck. So she works
Oh yeah.
county. So as a city councilor, you can always reach out to other sources in our state, in our county, and plead with them, beg with them, tell them, you know, we have no control over this as a city councilor because it's out of our city limits, but you do. So what can you do to help our citizens that live just outside city limits but are definitely part of our community? All those people that are in our school district boundary, all those people that, you know, participate in all of our events and our businesses and patron our businesses. So they're just as important. But yeah, our limitations go just to city limits. So I would encourage all our counselors to reach out to Commissioner Buck, any other state agencies that might have a hand in getting broadband to our rural areas. Because yeah, I agree, it's very, very important.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any ideas? I feel like this is a very good comprehensive list, Michelle. I mean, typically I'm the one that's like, idea, but this is like exactly the ideas that I had been thinking about and wanting to see. The strategic plan has definitely been on my mind the last 6 months since we're coming up on it. So I think we should start planning for that sooner rather than later. I don't want to get to the end of the year and not have something in place going into 2022. But other than that, I like all the goals so far. Councillor Inman, I believe you had your hand, and then Councillor Prachu.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I agree. I think this is a great list, Michelle. I do like between the strategic plan and then 6, kind of complete the continuity of operations plan. I think those 2 things are as important as the rest.
All right, Councillor Prachu.
Well, it's always a great time to talk about all this because it gives you really a glimpse into the breadth and depth of the work that Manager Amberg does. So it's a lot. So yeah, do all those things, Michelle. That's great. That's a lot of stuff. And my thought and what's kind of coming to my mind is that even if those aren't goals officially, you still kind of have to do a lot of these things anyhow. So I might suggest that we try to at least include some goal that's not a normal part of your work. I'm not exactly sure what that would be at this moment because you do so much. So, but at the same time, if we weren't doing this tonight, there's a whole lot on this list that I think you would still be doing anyhow. And we're just kind of formalizing and saying, yes, go forth and do the things. So is there any particular goals that you might be thinking of, Michelle, that are kind of outside your norm, things maybe even for your career, things that you'd like to do personally. Don't necessarily have to be goals that are concrete, items of business, but maybe goals that are helpful for you.
Well, that's an interesting question. The way that I view this list is, yeah, these are things that might get done. But if they're on the list, I will make sure I make an effort that they do get done.
Yeah.
But these are things that I see that need attention.
What would help you be a better city manager? And not to say that you're not already a great city manager, but are there some training, some classes, some things that we could do for you that would be helpful for helping your growth?
There is several programs that ICMA has, the International City Managers Association. One is a credentialed manager program that's pretty detailed, and I'm not sure I really want to go down that road. But then there's a certificate program that I am interested in. It would make me a certificated ICMA manager, not a credentialed one. And I think it would give me a lot more tools in my toolbox and would help me step up my game in a lot of areas. So that's one area that's one thing I have been thinking about.
Would you like to throw it on the list? I don't want to pressure you, but if it's something that would be good and help, I think it would be awesome.
And I would just like to throw in there, a lot of these things, seem like, well, that's just, Manager Amberg's job. But this also helps our city manager know what council wants. It's not just, of course, she's going to do her job and we have to hold her accountable to that job, but this helps her have a better understanding of what council wants, the council direction. And that's why we do it every year, because our council changes and so do our plans and our goals change. I think in previous years we had a lot of lofty goals because we were pre-pandemic, but now we have to kind of dig ourselves out of what's occurred the last year. And so obviously those goals take over now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Manager Amberg, but it feels like you need some direction from council. You like knowing what we want to work on. And this is kind of a way to do that in a better way.
Yeah, when I look at things, I see a really, really big picture. And without council providing goals, I feel like I'm stretched in 30 different ways, because all things are equal and all things would demand my attention, and I would be guessing about what is most important. There are a lot of different ways that city council could focus, and in the past, they chose different goals, and my job is to meet the goals of the city council. So yeah, this is kind of my job description for the next year. And if city council wanted to throw in, the last city council wanted to talk about equity and race and things like that. That's not even on this list. That's a whole different direction that would create a whole different workload for me in a whole different area. If city council wanted to, buy Bald Knob, that would create a whole different workload for me in a whole different direction. So while these things may seem like no-brainers, that, oh yeah, you'll do these anyway, it's not really, because this helps me know what you want me to focus on and where you want me to put my time and energy, and what helps you to be successful policymakers. So I agree with the mayor. This is a very important list of activities for me and goals that I don't take them lightly, and they really do shape my year.
Yeah. Just a side note, the city does not want to buy Bald Knob. Please, no. We want somebody else to buy all of them.
You know, that was one of them one year.
No, oh geez, not while I was on. No, that's $1 million endeavor that the city doesn't have funds for that. So
That's right. It would be it would be a really hard goal. It would have to be a multi-year goal, and it would have to be a primary. A lot of other things would have to fall off the page for that to happen.
Councilor Procio.
Thank you for the expanded conversation about how this helps you, Michelle. That helps me understand how it helps you. So, and in that vein, I might even suggest that there might be some things that we want to take off the list. I wonder about park development and whether there's even any really funds to do anything there anyhow. Is that a realistic goal, developing park facilities at 2nd Street?
This is what the Parks and Tree Board does, and this has been their recommendations. And we've actually bought the playground equipment for the Cobalt Activity Center, but we weren't able to install it because of COVID and bad weather. I have working with the Coast Fork Watershed to develop a contract to abate the non-native species. We have a whole line item in our budget for that, and it's been ignored for years.
So there is work to do there.
Yeah, there's people who in the community who keep asking when are we going to do 2nd Street Park, and we have to relocate the water and sewer lines there before we can do that. Putting in walkways at Grasslands Park is very doable, and we do have the money for that. That's not very expensive. We were approached by a bicycle, the county's bicycle consortium, who is interested in knowing if we want to put a kiosk at the park. And so again, you know, that's something City Council could say, no, we don't want to do anything else with Bicycle Park, and I wouldn't proceed with that. But we could do that, and I think we do need to have a grand opening for the park. And then I think we do need to complete the Garden Lake Master Plan. Garden Lake Park has a lot of potential that's just not being used, and I think we need to master plan that. Although we don't have to do that this year, that can be something that's part of the strategic plan. So I guess if anything was going to fall off at the parks, it might be the master plan for Garden Lake.
Well, I remember the one thing that wasn't on your plan for last year that wound up being such a big part of your work was the city's response to COVID. So I want to make sure that we aren't setting you up with too many goals that would make it difficult to pivot and adjust if something else came up, although I can't imagine what, but
who knows? 2001 already has been a real year for Texas. I feel for them down there. Yeah, you just never know what's going to come up. And even during COVID last year, we had a major fire. And so the county is still digging out from underneath that as well. So it is hard to tell. It seems as if we're getting disaster on top of disaster anymore.
Right. Yeah, winter's not over. We could still have that March snowstorm.
No.
So that continuity of operations plan will really come in handy then.
All right. So any new counselors, you guys have any questions, ideas, thoughts? List looks good, and this is what we want our city manager to focus on this year. I see a lot of nodding heads. So Michelle, I think this is a good list, and I think we have some great goals going into 2021.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, was that Councilor Medina? Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, no, it's a great list, and I just had one question on the like park maintenance stuff. Is that done into the budget, or like could that be something to focus on, like the maintenance and upkeep of the parks type of things? Like, I don't know, like the last time I know at the park there was like, 3 of the plastic foot things missing and a bunch were loose on the rock walls type stuff. And so I'm just curious on how you handle that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, we have Public Works, and I know that our Public Works director's listening in, and I'm sure he's taking notes right now to go take a look at that wall and see what's going on with that wall. That's just part of Parks maintenance. These functions that are under Parks here would be paid through system development charges, which is a special fund where we gather money off of development to actually develop our parks. So we would use park SDCs for most of this. Except for the wayfinding kiosk and grand opening and the master plan. Those things would not, well, the master plan could be a SDC eligible too. And the Coast Fork watershed non-native species is already a line item that needs to be spent. We need to get that out of there. But a lot of it's paid for through SDCs.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I think we're good to go to move forward with these goals, and we can bring this to our next city council meeting to adopt.
Okay, I will do that.
Oh, somebody else's. Councilor Castillo?
One last question, Michelle. What's wrong with our city logo? Why?
Yeah, it needs some refreshing. It's kind of dark and gothic looking, and it has a church on it, and there's a lot of people, not the staff. The staff is not in love with it, but you know, that doesn't mean that we can't keep it. And I just think we need to have a discussion. I have some other logos that might interest you that are a little bit more updated, and I just like to have the discussion. That's all.
Okay. Oh, and I, what, just off the top of your head, what would be the cost for rebranding that logo?
It costs $50 to come up with a new logo, and then because we don't have to have much that's printed, because we can do our own printing, it's pretty much probably another $150 to come up with the various formatting for letterhead or cards or whatever, and we would continue to use the old logo until we ran out of supplies, and then we would just order it with the new logo. It's not a big expense, but it needs to be done right, and it needs to have the support of the city council.
And I think we will bring this
I love our logo. But
okay.
I'm open-minded looking at your new artwork.
Yeah, I just got the shirt.
Well, you can still wear the old logo. That's okay.
No, that is so last year. You cannot wear any old city logo stuff.
It might be worth money on eBay later.
Right. They become collectibles that way.
All right. Michelle, if you're good to go, if council's good to go, I think we're good to go.
Okay, yes, thank you, I am.
Great. Nothing else is on our discussion items, and so I will officially adjourn the meeting at 7:28.